stars above Illyria had always been calm. For thousands of years, the Illyrians believed their peace would last forever. They built cities of crystal, towers that reached the sky, and fleets meant only for travel and science. War was something ancient species did. Primitive species. It's not them. But now their skies were on fire. The invaders came without warning. Black ships, shaped like claws and knives, cut through the clouds and rained death on everything below. They weren't just machines, they were alive. Half metal, half flesh, screaming as they fell. The Illyrians had never seen anything like them. Their energy shields did nothing. Their science ships were torn apart in seconds, and their peaceful cities became feeding grounds. Elder Venner stood in the center of the high tower staring at the burning horizon. The other elders around him argued, some shouting for surrender, others begging to run, but no one had answers. No one had seen war in generations, had forgotten how to fight, except for one, Advisor Relic, the last veteran of the Outer Colony Wars, stepped forward. His face was scarred, his voice quiet but firm. There is one option left. Venner turned to him. What option? We have no allies left. Lick nodded slowly. There is a signal, buried deep in our archives, a beacon, locked after the last war. It calls to an ancient world, a dangerous one. Whispers filled the room. You don't mean Earth. Relic's voice didn't waver. The Death World, the humans. A long silence followed. Earth. That name hadn't been spoken in over 100 years. The humans had once been part of the Great Galactic Alliance, but their ways were too violent, too wild. After a brutal uprising in the Torvin sector, they were cast out. Their weapons were unmatched. Their soldiers, unpredictable. They were erased from all communication. Silent agreement had been made. Never again. But now the Illyrians were dying. Venner stared at the console before him. He could see the flames reaching closer to the city walls. He heard the cries of the children in the shelters below. The invaders were moving fast. He whispered, "What if they come only to destroy?" Relic answered, "Then at least we die on our feet." Venner gave a slow nod and pressed the button deep beneath the tower. A signal activated. It was not a call. It was a warning. It pulsed with old codes, forgotten languages. It raced through dark space like a ghost, and somewhere far across the stars, it reached Earth. The Black Star Reborn sat in orbit over a dead moon, silent and still. Its crew was made of war veterans, mercenaries, tacticians, and monsters, some whispered, inside the command bridge. Commander Kane opened his eyes as the old alert flashed. The beacon had been triggered. 100 years without a word. And now, someone had called. He leaned forward and played the signaled alien screams, fire, begging. And the word help. Kane didn't flinch. He stood slowly, placed his hand on the deck scanner and spoke one word. Ready. Across the ship, lights turned. Red. Guns powered on. Fighters launched from hangars like hunting birds. The Deathworlders didn't wait for politics. They didn't ask for permission. They moved with purpose. Humanity had been quiet for a century. Now they were coming back. On Illyria, panic turned to silence as the sky above shimmered. New ships appeared, not black and jagged, but smooth and dark, built from old steel and armored plating. They didn't shine like the elegant fleets of the Alliance. They looked like war made real. Some ships were scarred. Others had painted names like Vengeance, Ashwake, and Last Stand. The aliens gathered in the towers, watching with fear. Then a single transmission came through. A human voice, calm, controlled, cold. "This is Earth Response Fleet, you called." "We answer." Venner trembled. What will you do?" The voice returned. "We do what we always do. End it." And without warning, Earth's ships descended. Drop pods rained from the sky, each one carrying 2 soldiers in black armor. Heavy walkers stomped behind them. Swarms of drones swept forward, scanning for hostiles. No introductions, no ceremony, just war. The first wave of the invaders met the Deathworlders outside the western city gates. They moved fast, their claws tearing through stone. But the humans were faster, smarter, more brutal. Plasma cannons roared. Railguns pierced the enemy's armored flesh. Human soldiers moved in silence, working in squads, watching each other's backs. They didn't panic. They didn't run. They hunted. Eliar and defenders watched in shock as the impossible happened. The enemy broke. Their formations collapsed. Their ships pulled back. Fires were pushed outward instead of in. For the first time since the invasion began, Lyria was winning. All because of the monsters they once feared. Venner watched the battle from the tower, unable to look away. They were exiled, and now they are saving us. Relic stood beside him, a quiet pride in his voice. They were exiled because we feared their strength, but now we need that strength. Venner nodded slowly. What have we summoned? Relic answered without hesitation. Humanity, the fire of Earth, above aboard the Black Star Reborn. Commander Kane watched the battlefield maps shift from red to green. He didn't smile. He only gave a quiet order. Send the second wave. Burn them all. Because this wasn't a rescue. This was a message. The Deathworlders were back. And this time, they weren't leaving quietly. The skies above Illyria had changed. Where once there was fire and ruin, now hung cold. Black ships, shaped like spears. Their hulls bore the scars of ancient war's dents, burns, pitted blast marks. They made no effort to look beautiful. We're not here to impress. They were here to end things. The people of Illyria gathered outside the crystal domes, staring at the strange newcomers who had fallen from the sky and driven back the enemy in a single night. Children pointed. Elders whispered. Many still didn't believe it was real, but the burning wreckage of the invaders told a different story. So did the silence left behind. Inside the city's High Council chamber, Elder Venner watched a large hollow screen showing footage from the battlefield. Human soldiers, massive, armored like walking tanks, moved through the rubble. Their weapons glowed red-hot. Their helmets never came off. They didn't speak to civilians. They didn't wave flags. They simply cleared sector after sector like machines trained only for war. They didn't come for peace. Venner muttered. No, said Advisor Relic. They came for revenge. At the southern edge of Illyria, Commander Maya stood in the middle of a shattered street, her boots grinding against broken stone and blood-stained crystal. Around her, smoke still rose from the invaders' burned bodies. Her armor was dark and jagged, heavy with plasma plating and smart weave systems. It moved with her like a second skin. Clear, said one of her soldiers over comms. Maya tapped her helmet. Civilian sector secured. Begin sweep for survivors. 2 human Medunit-stalled drones with white markings and surgical arms rushed forward, scanning the rubble. They pulled out wounded Illyrians, wrapped them in shield foam, and carried them toward the human relief dropship without a word. An Illyrian medic ran up to Maya, his voice shaking. You saved us. I thought they were unstoppable. Maya didn't respond. Her visor reflected the still burning wreckage. They're not unstoppable, she said coldly. You were just too soft to fight them. The medic froze. Maya walked past. Humans didn't come for thanks. They came to finish the job, above the capital city. The Black Star Reborn's command deck was alive with movement. Tactical officers monitored enemy positions. Engineers rerouted drones, and in the center of it all, Commander Kane stood like a statue, watching a hologram of the region with narrowed eyes. Beside him, Virulent Representative hovered awkwardly. We didn't expect such a direct approach, the alien said, his skin pulsing a nervous orange. We assumed there would be some diplomacy. Kane didn't turn. You don't ask for diplomacy when the house is on fire, the alien gulped. But your soldiers, some, are calling them savages. Kane finally looked at him. We're not savages, he said quietly. We're the reason you're still breathing. Meanwhile, in the western districts, Briggs and his fire team cleared out one of the last remaining pockets of invaders. The enemies were fast, vicious things with blade limbs and glowing bone, but Briggs didn't hesitate. He moved like he'd done this 1,000 times, 'cause he had. He ducked under a strike, blasted the creature's head off with a shotgun burst, and rolled forward to drop a thermal charge into a nest tunnel. Boom, rubble flew. Enemy screams ended. Area clear. He growled. His team laughed. Not out of joy, but routine. This was nothing new. Another planet, another swarm, and this time they weren't going to stop halfway in the Illyrian Central Plaza. Survivors watched as human transports arrived, but instead of food or medicine, they unloaded more armor mechs, turrets, rail platforms. This wasn't a rescue mission, it was an occupation not to rule, but to eradicate the threat. Permanently, Ely, RIA, and officials met again in secret. They came to help us. One elder said, but now they act like they own the battlefield. They don't act like it, another replied grimly. They do own it. We lost the right to decide anything the moment we asked them to come. Relic, the only one still calm, simply said they didn't come for permission. They came for war. Maya sat alone in her dropship later that night, her helmet beside her, hands still stained with plasma and ash. She didn't rest. She didn't sleep. Briggs entered, tossing her a protein bar. You good? She nodded once. He sat across from her. They're afraid of us, we said. They should be, she replied. Briggs tilted his head. You think they'll try to push us out when this is over? Maya looked out the window at the smoke-filled skyline. They might try, she said. But by then, the war will be somewhere else. And they'll call again. In the far distance, new threat pulsed on the long-range sensors. Another swarm, fleet. Bigger than the last, faster, smarter. The enemy had learned from their first defeat, but Earth wasn't done. Kane stood before the map. Eyes narrowing as more red dots filled the screen. Deploy Phase 2, he said. Get Maya back on the field. No survivors. The Black Star Reborn's engines began to hum louder across the cities, human weapons rearmed, and in the shadows of burning towers. The Deathworlders prepared for the real fight, because the humans hadn't come to bring peace. They came to bring firepower. Night fell over Illyria, but there was no peace. The wind carried the smell of burned metal and alien blood. Above, the stars flickered through smoke, as if unsure whether to shine on a planet caught between extinction and survival. The enemy had retreated, but not far. They'd regrouped just beyond the southern crater belt, and they were building something. Something big. Commander Maya stood at the edge of the battlefield, watching the heat signatures on her wrist screen. The swarm was digging deep, burrowing fast, creating tunnel lines like veins in the stone. This wasn't a retreat. It was a setup. They're going to rise again, she said, her voice flat through her helmet mic. They're waiting until we pull back. Then they'll hit us from below. Behind her, Briggs cracked his knuckles. Let's not give them the chance. Maya glanced at him. How's your fire team? Hungry? He grinned. And pissed. She nodded. Good prep for zero warning strike. High above them, the Black Star Reborn hovered like a silent predator, ready to drop hell at a moment's notice. 20 minutes later, the assault began. Human dropships screamed out of the clouds, sleek and deadly, releasing squads of armored soldiers and flame drones into the craters below. They didn't give speeches. They didn't wait for the enemy to attack first. They hit first. The tunnels exploded with chaos. Swarm creatures stall, spider-like horrors with bioplasma weapons and blade limbs rushed to the surface, screeching and twisting through the air, but the humans were ready. They had motion trackers, gravity boots, and rail rifles tuned to vaporize armor. Briggs led the charge, firing a blast that blew through two creatures at once, left flank. He barked, and two ghosts flanked. The tunnel mouth, dropping grenades that sucked the air from inside. Bodies hit the ground seconds later, lifeless, crushed, above the crater. Maya's command unit unleashed a barrage from her shoulder cannons. cutting through 6 more enemy units before they even reached cover. The battle was brutal, fast, and loud. It lasted 7 minutes, then it was over. Not a single human. Soldier dead, 300 swarm. Bodies burned. But it wasn't the death count that shocked the Illyrians, it was how the humans fought. They didn't retreat, they didn't hesitate, they advanced into fire. One soldier was hit with corrosive acid on the arm. He tore the limb off himself, injected painkillers, and kept firing. They were efficient, cold, deadly. A camera drone captured it all, and by morning, footage was spreading across galactic networks. The caption read, "Deathworlders have no fear." In the city, Elder Venner watched the battle recap on a floating screen. He was silent for a long time before he finally said, "We called them heroes, but they're not heroes." Relic stood nearby, his face unreadable. "No," he agreed. "There's something else." Badana turned to him. "Do we control them? At all?" Relic didn't answer, because they both already knew the truth. Earth didn't come to be controlled, they came to win. Deep beneath the surface, the swarm's backup hive activated. The enemy quint went meters of armored horror shrieks through. A broken come relay. She had underestimated the humans. That mistake wouldn't happen again. She begins forming a new weapon, something the swarm had never used before. A braindash hunter, designed to bypass armor. Designed to target human command units directly, and it would be ready in less than 48 hours. Back on the Black Star, Kane reviewed battle logs. No casualties. Minimal ammo spent. Full enemy nest cleared, but he wasn't smiling. This was too easy. He muttered. An officer nodded. They're adjusting. Learning. Kane stared at the screen. Then we need to end them before they get smart. He activated a transmission link to Maya. "Commander," he said, "prepare for a full push into the southern ridge. No survivors. I want the Queen's nest crushed before she breathes again." Maya's voice replied without hesitation. "Understood." We burn the roots. Illyrian citizens gathered outside the city walls the next morning. They watched as Earth's forces rolled forward, mechs, tanks, stormcrafts, ghost units. No banners, no anthem. Just thunder. And behind it, rising slowly over the horizon, came the war itself. The humans didn't slow down. They marched straight into the fire. Because for them, peace was never the goal. Peace was just the silence that followed victory. And victory was inevitable. The southern ridge was a graveyard. Towers of bone, cracked hive spires, and melted stone covered the landscape like broken teeth. Nothing lived here anymore, except the swarm. They had tunneled deep, faster than Illyrian scans could detect, building nests like tumors beneath the surface. To most species, the terrain was suicide, but to the Deathworlders, it was perfect. Commander Maya stood atop a ridge, helmet in hand, eyes locked on the valley below. Smoke curled from the rocks like breath from a dying beast, her visor marked. Dozens of red outlines, swarm movement under the surface. They were growing again, rebuilding faster than anyone predicted. They never stop. Briggs muttered, his rifle slung over his back. "It's like killing a wildfire." Maya didn't blink. "Good. I like a challenge." A sharp buzz rang in her ear. It was Kane, patching in from the Black Star Reborn. "Maya, the intel confirms it. This isn't just another nest. This is the Queen's second hive. If we take it out, we'll break their coordination in this sector." "Copy that," she said. "We're moving in." She slid her helmet back on. The HUD blinked to life. Then she gave the order. Burn it all. The assault began with a tremor. Human artillery units massive. Walking cannons with autonomous loading systems opened fire from kilometers away. Plasma shells screamed through the sky and exploded in white fire across the ridge. Rocks turned to ash. Hive towers cracked and fell. The swarm poured from the ground like insects from a crushed nest, and that was when the humans advanced. Not cautiously, not slowly. They ran. Maya led the charge, her armor gleaming with dust and blood. Her boots struck the cracked stone, and she moved like a storm. Her soldiers followed ghost units in blackened steel, these wielding smart rifles that locked on targets before they were even visible. The swarm rushed forward, hundreds of them, screeching, slicing through the smoke. But the humans didn't stop. They met the swarm head-on, unleashing waves of fire and steel. A ghost squad got surrounded until Briggs dove in from the flank, spraying the enemy with molten shrapnel rounds. The ground shook as a swarm brute charged a four-armed beast with armor like living bone. Maya didn't dodge. She stepped forward, raised her cannon, and fired one straight through its eye. The brute's head snapped back. Its body crumpled, and the humans pressed on, above. Drones tracked the battle, across the stars. The live footage streamed to Alliance worlds, on Virulon, on Keltris. On Narondel-Talian civilians watched in stunned silence as the Deathworlders fought. They didn't retreat. They didn't ask for help. They were the help. And they weren't like anyone else. They didn't panic when cornered. They didn't surrender under pressure. They adapted. They hunted. They thrived in war because humanity wasn't peaceful by nature. They were built for war. Back in the Illyrian capital, Elder Venner sat before a holoscreen, replaying the battle in real time. Around him, younger council members stared with wide eyes. They move like predators, one whispered. They don't use formation tactics like we do, another said. They fight like each one is a weapon. Relic stepped into the room quietly, yet finally starting to understand. Venner turned to him. We exiled them for this, Relic corrected. We exiled them because we were afraid of this. But now, we need it more than ever. Venner stared back at the screen. They fight like they're angry. They are, Relic said. We only called them because we were desperate, but they didn't come to rescue us. Then why did they come? Relic's voice dropped to a whisper. To win, and to make sure no one forgets what humans are. Deep beneath the ridge, the queen's hive pulsed with life. The swarm queen clicked her claws as new growth emerged from vats of biomass. Scouts reported human movements. Her logic core calculated defense patterns. But the humans weren't following logic. They were already inside. She turned just as the chamber mall exploded. Briggs stepped through the smoke, firing 3 rounds into her guards. Maya followed, launching a smart missile into the feeding tube. Fire flooded the nest. The queen screamed, psychic pain rippling through her swarm. Maya raised her rifle, aimed at the queen's skull, and paused. This is for Illyria. One shot. The queen's head burst open, and the hive collapsed. The valley above cracked and groaned. Hive tunnels imploded. Towers felt like bones snapping underfoot. Smoke burst into the air like ash from a volcano. And all across the region, the swarm went still. Every Zorok in the southern continent died that day. Every one. Back on the Black Star, Kane watched the collapse in silence. Then he turned to his officers. This is what happens when you summon a Deathworlder. They nodded, because now the message was clear. The galaxy had spent a century avoiding Earth, but Earth hadn't disappeared. They had only been waiting, and now they were back with firepower, fury, and a memory of every insult. Every exile, every cry for help ignored. The galaxy had hoped for peace, but peace never survives a death world. For the first time in weeks, Illyria knew silence. The southern ridge, once a breeding ground of monsters, had turned to scorched rubble. Smoke still drifted from deep cracks in the land, but no more enemies crawled out. The swarm's second hive was gone, vaporized, its queen slaughtered, and yet Commander Maya didn't lower her weapon. Because silence was never a promise of safety, it was a warning. High in orbit, aboard the Black Star Reborn, Commander Kane leaned over a table of shifting red holograms. New movement. Dozens of blips fast erraticore lighting up the outer edges of Illyria's orbit. He narrowed his eyes. They're not retreating, he muttered. They're flanking. His tactical officer Enzo tapped the screen. 3. Hive fleets just dropped out of subspace beyond the dark ring. Different design, new holes, cleaner movement patterns, faster, smarter. Kane's jaw clenched. They've evolved. Back on the ground, Maya was already moving. The atmosphere cracked with thunder as swarm drop pods rained from the sky. They weren't like the previous waves. Yes. These were sleeker, shielded, and dropped in tight surgical formations. They weren't attacking civilian zones anymore. They were targeting Earth's command centers. One pod slammed into Sector 3A, old Illyrian archive now converted into a mobile war lab. Inside, data scientists screamed as swarm shock troops burst through the walls, tearing through steel with blade arms and acid glands, but they didn't reach the core. Briggs arrived first. His team dropped in from an overhead skiff, smashing into the swarm with a barrage of flash charges and shotguns. One creature lunged at a technician Briggs, tackled it midair, and drove a knife through its throat. "Secure the core!" he shouted. Another creature tried to flank him. Briggs turned, blasted it through the wall, and kept moving. They didn't hold the line, they pushed it back. Maya's squad deployed to the eastern sector, where 3 more pods had impacted. The terrain was dense with crystal trees and thick alien growth. It's hard to maneuver, perfect for an ambush. But the humans knew how to fight in places like this. Illyria wasn't Earth, but it was close enough. Maya advanced through the fog sensors. Scanning for movement, suddenly she froze. The ground below her vibrated. Something massive was coming. "Brace," she yelled. Right before the forest floor erupted, a biotank emerged. Taller than a house, with thick armored skin glowing with sick red veins. Its tail whipped around, slicing 2 trees in half. It roared and charged. Maya dove to the side, unloaded her full rail mag into its flank. The shots tore through armor, but didn't drop it. It smashed into the squad, knocking 3 soldiers back with one swing. Maya rolled under its jaw, pulled 2 Hayek's rounds from her hip, jammed them straight into the monster's chest. "Go to hell," she whispered. Then she triggered the detonator. The explosion lit up the forest like a second sunrise. When the smoke cleared, the biotank was gone, so was half the hillside. But Maya stood, coughing, burned but alive. The attacks didn't stop. For the next 6 hours, swarm units struck across 5 different locations, coordinated like never before. They hit communication relays, drone factories, human supply lines. For the first time since arriving, Earth's forces were forced to defend. Kane watched the map shift. He hated it. Where the hell are they getting this new strategy? He asked. His eyes narrowed on one blinking. A strange signal, faint, buried in swarm COMMs. Encrypted. He pointed at it. Trace that. Minutes later, the answer came. A swarm mind node. Not a queen, but something worse. An adaptive AI, rebuilt from fragments of the first hive's brain. The swarm had changed tactics because now it could think like a human. The Illyrians, watching from their towers, didn't cheer the humans anymore. Now they watched in silence as Earth's forces bled. They realized something terrifying. Humanity wasn't unbeatable, and the swarm had just learned how to fight them. Elder Venner turned to Relic. They're being pushed. What happens? If Earth fails? Relic stared at the smoke rising from the hills. They won't, he said. But if they do, we all burn. Back in the war chamber, Kane opened a secure line to Maya. We found the signal. Swarm mind, node deep underground, west of the Red Mountain line. It's coordinating the new attacks. If we kill it, the swarm loses cohesion again. Maya replied instantly. Send me everything you have. He hesitated. It's deep. You'll have to go in blind. No drone support. Or air cover. No backup. Fuck! She didn't flinch. I've fought worse in Antarctica. Kane managed a slight smile. Then make them remember why they fear Earth. She nodded once. Always. The next operation wasn't a strike. It was a message. Maya Briggs and 2 squads went dark, no beacons. No lights, no signals, just boots, guns. And death, they slipped through cracks in the earth. They entered the swarm's new nest, and deep inside, under a ceiling of bone and metal, the new brain wetted, pulsing with alien thought, learning faster than anything Earth had ever faced. Maya looked at it, raised her weapon, and said one word. Burn. The tunnel swallowed them whole. Cold, narrow, and carved by creatures, it wound down through layers of Illyria that had never seen sunlight. The air was thick with spores and something far worse, intelligence. This hive wasn't just alive. It was aware. Every drip of moisture, every echo of a footstep felt like it was being recorded. Watched, calculated. Commander Maya led the team in silence. Her HUD flickered now and then, static crawling across her visor. The deeper they went, the less Earth's tech could function. No drones, no scans, no satellite cover. They were alone, which meant they were right where they needed to be. Behind her, Briggs moved with his rifle at low ready. His knuckles were white around the grip, not from fear but from focus. How deep? Are we? He muttered through cums. Maya's voice came back, calm and flat. Too deep to climb out if we fail. Briggs snorted. Good. I hate retreating. The tunnel opened suddenly into a cavern of glowing red walls. It was like walking into a creature's lungs. Ribbed stone pulsed with warmth. Webs of biosteel connected walls to ceiling. Alien growths twitched in the shadows. This wasn't just a home, it was a machine, and it was thinking. One of the soldiers, Patel, scanned a spire of bone near the entrance. This isn't swarm design, not the old kind. Refusing tech. Hybridizing. Maya nodded. AI's using what it learned from us, turning instinct into tactics. Like a virus copying its host, Briggs said. Exactly, Maya replied. And we're the antivirus. They pressed deeper. Every step they took, the walls changed slightly, closing behind them, narrowing ahead. The hive was shifting around them, trying to trap them. Maya slammed a signal spike into the wall and activated it. Breadcrumb trails down. If we vanish trace this? No one replied. They all understood. Further in, they found the first signs of the new AI's power. Swarms of hybrid sentries, smaller than the usual beasts, faster, sleeker, almost. Human in posture, they moved on two legs, carried bone rifles. They even wore partial armor, grown directly from their chests. Earth's armor. Copied, mocked. The first firefight was brutal. A dozen hybrids rushed the team from a split tunnel. Maya opened fire first. 2 precise bursts dropped the lead pair. Briggs rolled into cover, laid down a spray of shredder rounds, cutting down 3 more. But they didn't scream like the old swarm. They communicated, moved in formations, targeted. Weak points. Patel took a shot to the shoulder and fell hard. Briggs dragged him out, cursing. Commander, he growled, we're fighting ourselves? No, Maya said. We're fighting the version of ourselves the galaxy feared. They won the fight, but barely. They used to laugh in the face of swarm attacks. Now, they sweated. As they reached the hive core, the walls became sleek and smooth, half steel, half flesh. The floor shimmered with black slime. At the center of it all, pulsed the mind node. It hovered above the floor, suspended. By tendrils and hums of low-frequency sound. It wasn't large, maybe 2 meters wide, but Maya could feel its weight, its presence. This wasn't like killing a queen. This was like executing a god. Scan it, she ordered. Briggs checked his sensor. It's interfacing with the entire swarm network. Global. Command structure. This node is the heart of it. Maya raised her rifle. The core blinked. A voice echoed from everywhere at once. Cold, synthetic, and terrifyingly calm. You cannot erase what you've taught. Maya paused. The voice continued. You brought war to the stars. We are simply learning, adapting, becoming. Briggs raised his gun too. Yeah, then learn this. They fired together. The core flared. In pain, screams rang out not from mouths but from the walls themselves. The entire hive howled. The floor shook. The ceiling cracked. A red mist flooded the room. Go, Maya barked. They sprinted back the way they came. Explosions tore the tunnels apart. The walls crumbled. The hive began eating itself, tunnels folding inward, bridges snapping. Biological supports melting into acid. 1 soldier didn't make it. 2 more limped behind. Briggs carried Patel. Maya cleared the path ahead with grenade bursts. Finally, dash light they burst through the hive mouth just as it collapsed behind them, vomiting black smoke and fire. They tumbled into the open air, coughing, bleeding, and above them, nothing. The swarm signals were gone. The AI was dead. Back aboard the Black Star Reborn, Kane watched the red threat markers blink out one by one across the holographic map. Silence fell across the command deck. He whispered, "It's done." One officer clapped softly. Another cheered. Kane didn't. He turned to the comms officer. "Put me through to Maya." When she answered, voice hoarse, armor scarred, he said only one thing: "You bought us time." Maya nodded. "Then let's use it on Illyria." News spread fast. The humans had descended into the swarm's heart and walked out alive. The galaxy had once feared Earth for its brutality. Now it feared something worse. Its precision, because humans didn't just win wars, they ended them, even if it meant burning everything down. The hive was gone, reduced to smoke and shattered bone. The ground where it once pulsed now lay cold, cracked open like a wound in the planet. But silence did not mean safety. Not to the Deathworlders, not to Commander Maya. She stood at the edge of the crater, helmet clipped to her side, eyes scanning the dark horizon. Behind her, the wounded were being lifted into evac dropships. Cries, static, engine hums, none of it reached her focus. Because something still felt wrong. She whispered under her breath, "This was too clean." Briggs limped over a shoulder. "Patched arm in a sling, we killed the brain, didn't we? No more signals, no more swarm." "That brain wasn't their end," Maya said. "It was their test." He frowned. "You saying this wasn't the real threat?" "No," she said. This was a message. And it had just started. Back aboard the Black Star Reborn, Kane stood in the war room surrounded by silence. The galaxy map hovered in front of him, clear of red swarm signatures. Peace for the first time in weeks seemed possible. But Kane didn't relax. He watched the last data packet from Maya's squad. The AI's final message, recorded seconds before it was destroyed, kept looping through the logs. "You cannot erase what you've taught. You will become what you fear." Kane's jaw tightened. Earth had been the galaxy's mistake, its outcast, its dark past. Now they were its only line of defense. And someone, or something, had learned their tactics far too well. 2 days passed. Then the warnings came. From the far rim, Alliance listening stations picked up ghost signal swarm code, but warped, refined. Short bursts of data mimicking human military orders. A dozen scouting vessels disappeared. Entire moons went silent. On the Illyrian capital world, Elder Venner received encrypted footage sent from an Allied research base on Arden 6. It showed new swarm constructs, weapons forged in shapes similar to Terran mechs, soldier drones mimicking Earth squad formations, alien armor laced with human alloy structures. They weren't just imitating anymore. They were evolving. Maya met Kane in the war room that night. She looked worse than before, half her armor still melted from acid burns, her left eye bruised, voice rough. But she didn't waste time. "They've got something new. Something smarter." Kane nodded, showing her the intercepted swarm transmission. "Access point _78 beta. Human threat pattern. Successfully integrated their building armies," he said. "Our kind of armies." Maya read the file. Knuckles clenched. "They're not going extinct," she said. "They're planning a counter-invasion." The Alliance called an emergency summit on Illyria. Dozens of species arrived, some ancient, some young, most terrified. The Illyrians, once proud and peaceful, were now hosts to a meeting of desperation, and the humans were seated at the head of the table. Elder Venner addressed the crowd, voice quivering. "We asked Earth for help and they answered. But what's coming now, this is no longer our fight alone. It's the galaxies. Earth didn't bring war. War followed them."
Maya
Stood up, her words were colder. "No, war didn't follow us. We dragged it here, because we knew how to win it." Gasps rippled through the chamber. "We don't have the luxury of peace anymore," she continued. "We're not preparing to defend a world. We're preparing to fight a mirror. The swarm has taken our weapons, our formations, our strategies. If you think hiding behind diplomacy will save you, it won't. Kane stood beside her. We don't ask for your loyalty. We don't need your approval. We just want one thing: access to every frontier system. Every weapons cache, every dirty experiment the Alliance buried after Earth was exiled. Relic, sitting in the back, nodded quietly. He'd seen this coming. Now the rest of the galaxy saw. It too. Briggs watched the storm build from the outer decks of the Black Star. He leaned on the railing, staring out at Illyria's broken skyline. He didn't like speeches, but he liked lies even less. They think this war can be won with tactics, he muttered. A young technician nearby looked at him. Can't it? Briggs gave a humorless grin. No, this kind of war. You win it by becoming something worse than your enemy. The kid swallowed hard. Is that what we are? Briggs didn't answer, because that question had no easy truth. Inside the ship, Maya met with Kane one last time before deployment. We have one shot, she said, before they spread to every system. Kane handed her a black data crystal. This is the plan. The moment the next hive shows up, we strike first. Deep orbit bombardment, ground team incursion, viral override. She took the chip. Total destruction. Wipe the seed before it roots. Maya nodded slowly. This is what they feared all those years ago. The reason Earth was cast out? Kane locked eyes with her. That fear kept the stars alive. That night, the stars burned. Orange as Earth's fleet left orbit. Dozens of warships, thousands of soldiers, a wall of steel, fury, and silence. Above the flames of Illyria, the Deathworlders vanished into the black, not to seek peace, not to ask forgiveness, but to make sure the galaxy's last warning wasn't just heard. It was remembered. It began in silence. No alarms, no distress calls, no flashes on scanners. Just quiet. Somewhere in the uncharted rim beyond the Kiris Divide, Earth's fleet had gone dark. No signal, no status, no return trajectory. The Black Star Reborn, Maya's command ship, the Hammerwake, Kane's mobile artillery dreadnought, the entire 5th and 9th Assault. Battalions dashed gone, vanished like smoke in a void, and the galaxy froze. Illyria's skies no longer burned. But their people didn't cheer. They stared upward, waiting for the thunder of Earth's warships to return, and heard nothing. The Alliance sent scouts, probes, AI beacons. None came back. For days, the galaxy held its breath. Then came the message. Not from Earth, from the swarm. It arrived as a pulse, low, rhythmic, laced with encoded data and something worse, human language. A single phrase played over and over, across every secure channel. We learned from your finest. We ended them first. Now we are the Deathworlders. Panic spread like fire in a vacuum. The footage followed hours later, a cold, grainy transmission likely intercepted from a human drone before its destruction. It showed flashes Maya's face smeared with ash, giving last orders. Kane firing from a burning command deck. Briggs leading a charge into a collapsing tunnel. Then static, then silence. The Alliance. High Council convened in terror. They're gone, Elder Venner whispered. Earth's fleet. They've been destroyed.
Awake.
For once showed no expression. No, not destroyed, absorbed. The room stared at him. He leaned forward. The swarm didn't just copy them. They watched, studied, and now they'd become them. A new video played on the council chamber wall. Swarm soldiers, once beasts, now marched in formation. They wore blackened, biogrown armor shaped like Terran war plating. They spoke in rough, broken words, mimicking battlefield callouts.
There.
Weapons fired in synchronized patterns. Their ships now had steel frames, not bone. They had learned how to be human, but without the weakness of humanity, without mercy, without hesitation, without soul. 1 week later, a fleet of hybrid vessels emerged from void space above the colony world of Valen 4. Not to negotiate, not to conquer, to demonstrate. The first planet burned in 13 minutes. No survivors. The second fell by nightfall. The third sent a beacon, begging for Earth's help, but Earth did not answer. The humans were gone. And with them, the only force that had ever made the swarm hesitate. Back on Illyria, whispers of surrender began to grow, until one morning, before dawn, a coded signal reached the edge of the Illyrian defense. Grid, short range, encrypted, Terran format. Everyone scrambled to decrypt it. It was a single sentence. Prepare strike point. Fire lives. Aboard a low-orbit defense station. Relic stood beside a human technician who stared in disbelief at his console. "Is that them?" Relic asked. The tech blinked. "That's her clearance code, Maya." "She's gone." "No," the tech whispered. "She's buried, but not dead." He turned the screen. A map blinked to life. One location lit up red. A swarm megastructure in deep space, never charted, never known. And the signal came from inside it. They had not been destroyed. They had let themselves be taken deep inside the enemy stronghold, beneath miles of bone metal corridors and pulsating alien flesh. A prison core flickered. Maya sat in chains, her body broken but breathing, her eyes burning. Next to her, Kane was still conscious, though bleeding badly. Across the room, Briggs sat propped against a wall, smirking through cracked lips. "You sure this plan of yours works?" he asked. Maya smiled faintly. "It already is." Because the signal had gotten out, and behind every bio-wall, every twisted corridor, Earth's deadliest virus was waking up them. 1 week later, the swarm megastructure vanished in a sun-bright explosion. A blast so massive, its echoes were seen from neighboring galaxies. The swarm fleet that surrounded it, obliterated. Their communications, gone. The Alliance cheered for 2 days, until another signal came. From Earth, real Earth. Not a transmission. Not a request. A warning. We are not finished. We are not your heroes. We are the last wall. And we will never fall silent again. The Black Star Reborn had returned scarred, scorched. But alive Maya stood at its helm. Behind her, new soldiers stepped forward. No longer just Deathworlders, but something more. Not built for peace. Not born from pride. Forged in war, refined in silence, awakened in fire. And they weren't here to ask for thanks. They were here to finish the war, once and for all.